Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And before we get started, I would like to launch a little poll, if we could. And that poll would allow us to kind of get you into the mode of what we're going to talk about today. And that is the ability to really understand what frustrates you the most. I'm assuming that you logged into this webinar because you're looking at the seller's marketplace and some of the frustrations that you may be having there. So I'd like to start with the poll, and you can vote in this poll, and then we'll close the poll and get your results. So we'd like to know, what is your biggest frustration in the current meetings marketplace as it relates to being able to get response to your RFPs? Is it lack of availability? Is it consistently seeing higher rates across the marketplace? Or is it the slow or perhaps no response to RFPs that you send that you find most frustrating? And we'll give everyone just a moment, if you will, to vote. So as I see the responses coming in as you're voting, clearly frustration over increasingly high rates, and I don't imagine that we'll see that change anytime soon. Right behind is the slow or no response to RFPs that are being sent out. And third, with 25% of you saying the lack of availability or available dates that you're looking for is frustrating in this current marketplace. But clearly, high rates or higher rates seems to be the leading frustration in managing the sales marketplace or the current seller's marketplace, if you will. So with that being said, I think that you'll find the information that is going to be offered today as we look at new ways to leverage your meetings buying power in the meetings marketplace. And our panelists today, I think, have a lot to share with you in terms of that. I'd first like to introduce Roberta Kravitz. And Roberta is quite an esteemed planner. She is the Executive Director of ISMRM, and she has served in that capacity since 2005 and worked in the meetings industry since 1992. She's highly respected in the industry and is active in not only PCMA, having recently served on its board of directors, but also ASAE and CESSE as well. And she's a proud graduate of St. Mary's College of California. And then we are also excited to be joined today by the President and CEO of the exciting destination Visit Salt Lake. And Scott is also our current DMAI board chair, and he is uniquely, I think, suited to speak to this marketplace discussion because not only does he serve the fine city of Salt Lake, but prior to joining the Bureau, Scott was the general manager of the Salt Lake City Marriott Hotel and worked with the Salt Lake Olympic Organizing Committee as a host hotel and has a long background in the hotel business as well as food and beverage. So Scott and Roberta, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Very welcome.
Thank you.
I'd also like to welcome Chauncey Keller. She's the Executive Vice President of ePro Direct, who is a sponsor of our webinars each month. And Chauncey, we will speak with you at the end to talk a little bit more about your services. So our discussion today is going to really focus on the find process, with the hotel industry setting record-breaking numbers across 2013 and 14. Hotel supply will not outpace demand in the foreseeable future, so planners are looking to obtain more competitive responses. And who couldn't really use an advocate or really a strategic planning partner as they try to search destinations, find the best available rates, find competitive ways. And while we know there are really a plethora of resources available to planners supporting them, we believe that there are really none quite as unique as the services of how a CVB can help you find what you're looking for, and how they can open up destination specifics that you need to know before you hit that send button. And I think that's really our key that we'll concentrate on today, is before you hit send. And then we want to share with you some tools that are available to you with DMAI's website, empowerMINT.com, and how you may be able even to assess your post-event report there, and some more resources for learning. So let's jump into our discussion. I wanted to show you first this screenshot and have Scott comment. Scott, this is from a e-survey that DMAI had, and this is actually a direct response pullout from a lot of written responses to what is your largest pain point. And you can see how many times planners put the word find or finding. And that continues to be a frustration, but then not necessarily later in the survey connecting CVB with the find process, more with services after the fact. So Scott, would you comment to this?
I think as search has become the main tool for almost everything we do in daily life, whether that's to find the closest gas station to me or to find the best deal on a car or whatever it may be, that idea of going to my computer and searching for things has really become top of mind for everyone. And so there has been, I think still exists, a proliferation of tools to help the planners do that. And the analogy I always like to make, and I know it can it might sound a little bit far-reaching, but I've always tried to tell people that CVBs and DMOs are kind of the Google for hotel search. We have that ability to aggregate and maintain, and while our systems are not as sophisticated as the spiders that Google uses to return a search on where's the closest gas station, we really do have that local knowledge, and I think it's sort of partly our responsibility as well as CVBs that oftentimes we haven't been as responsive. We haven't been maybe as detailed in our response with specific market segment personalization in our responses. And I think that's what I find so excited about what's moving forward with empowerMINT and this real effort of our association to work with our industry peers and really become, again, as sort of weird as this sounds, to be better at being that Google for hotel search for our local destinations.
Well said, Scott. Roberta, you know, I put this little icon there and then made that bullet comment because I hear this a lot. Why do I need a CVB? I have the whole world at my fingertips, and I know you're quite an experienced planner, and yet I know that you involve CVBs in your search. Why is that?
Well, I mean, we all get to the position that we're in, and we learn by our mistakes. And I can say, for example, we did a workshop in a city that was based solely on an internet search, and once we got there, according to the internet, it was only a 15-minute walk into the center of town. Well, it didn't mention that you had to cross a busy freeway in order to make that walk, and there was no way to cross that freeway.
Yeah, the devil's in the details, right, Roberta?
It's in the details. So we learn from our mistakes, and we have felt that it is certainly much better to get the CVB and start the relationship early, and so we do it during our search process. We have a small staff and a very overloaded staff because we do a lot of events for our organization around the world, and we've just found that while we can get a lot of information from internet sites and through a Google search, we have to recognize that those sites are a marketing tool for the hotels. And while we do use them, we do start now with the CVB, who we found can provide a better understanding of not only the positioning of the hotel, whether there's very busy freeways that you have to run across to get to the center of town, but they can also provide a lot more logistical detail for vetting that can ultimately save time and money for my small staff who's not always able to physically site for our smaller programs, for example.
That's interesting you mentioned your smaller programs, because many may see you, your title, your association, and think that, you don't really move beyond the citywide world, and that CVBs might not be interested in helping you with your small programs. So you're a nice segue to my next question for Scott, which is, Scott, I did a little Google search myself to write in meeting facilities for Salt Lake City, and I got about 2 million matches. So tell me how you and your staff would help me filter my own research.
Well, that's because Salt Lake has so much meeting product, and everything is 20 minutes from everything.
Yeah, everything's 20 minutes from the airport, and there's no freeways.
That is one of the challenges that we all face in marketing, whatever it is. I mean, we're all in the good news business, right? So everything's great, everything's rosy, and I think that the idea of search really comes down to how you use filters and how you make sure that relevancy is king. And I think that's how you can really rely on the local DMO to make sure that relevancy is there. So as you can articulate, and again, a lot of this can and should be done via an electronic RFP system or some other system, but engaging that DMO as a filter and to help ensure that the things that do come up and the products that are delivered are extremely relevant. And there are a lot of great tools out there. There are a lot of great companies. There's a lot of folks that can help do that. But I think there's an added value at the DMO level in that we really are on the ground. We're on the ground every single day of the week, every single week of the year, and those things really, really, really do help when relevancy is key. And I think that's one of the things as the Google of sort of local destination search. We strive to be extremely informative so that we can be relevant and be that advisor, and in a way consultative, but in an even a more strategic way, in just giving information that is extremely relevant, ensuring that the best questions and the best information is there.
And Roberta, you mentioned this to me when we were speaking yesterday, that not only as a filter, but that you really rely on your destination sales professionals to give you consultative advice and direction. Do you care to kind of expand on that concept?
Well, I think when you start with the just the research that has to be done in order to send out an RFP, we don't want to have to filter through 60 responses from hotels or deal with the 2 million hits that one would get when you Google search meeting space in Salt Lake City. So working with the CVB, we use them as our filter. And we generally only want to send our RFP for our smaller programs anyway out to maybe 5 or 6 properties at the most. And it's a lot of work to filter through or to make a final decision. And we need to be as efficient as possible. And so the DMO or the CVB is our right arm in terms of narrowing down to 5 or 6 properties. They do an awful lot of work for us. And not only is it, of course, economically much better for us when we're trying to run our programs at a small profit or even just being revenue neutral, but it's just they have the knowledge. And so, and they also have the community calendar. And that's what's that's a huge deal to us, is that if the CVB has the community calendar and can let us know what's going on in the city during the time we're proposing to be there. This is for our large and our small programs. And this information can either be events that will enhance our own event or prevent our own event from happening or being as successful as it can be. So we're also looking to get that bigger picture from the CVB.
Great, Roberta. Scott, so when you talk about the calendar and historical occupancy, and the buzzword that I keep hearing, Scott, over and over is compression, right? Compression in cities. How would your staff advise planners about everything that I see here on this slide?
Well, I think a couple different ways. Again, with that sort of intimate sort of ability to add nuance to this, because I mean there are, I think, bureaus, and there is a future where everything we do is open and transparent, and all our community calendars out there to do that. But I think it gets down to that nuance, and again talks about relevancy. So if your dates are flexible and you have the ability to express that in the RFP, we can add that nuance to specific examples where people think we're in the West. People think we're West, so that means we got to be hot like Phoenix. Well, we're the Intermountain West, so July and August in Salt Lake is very different than July and August in Phoenix. And so there's little nuances that, while that's not as nuanced as some, it's that ability to take these things and kind of add our historical knowledge, knowing that there are events that may not be on a citywide calendar that create compression, local trends, local things that happen. And I also think that while pretty much all cities have a sort of a core downtown and business environment, transient demand's easy to understand that it's, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night are the peak, but there's some periods of time that just typically aren't. So if the midweek's important, we can talk about those times when transient demand isn't going to create compression or decrease the potential group room block ceiling or all those different types of things. And I think the last but not least is we can advise on those hotels, those properties, those providers that we know well and can advocate on behalf of the meeting planner and on behalf of the organization. And while you have one of the buttons there that is, or one of the areas that is realistic expectations, I think we can do that both for the planner but also for the property. And if we know the right property and there's the right match, we can be that advocate and set the expectation for the property that makes that piece of business easier to book for both parties.
That's such a good point, Scott, that the CVB really helps not only the planner set their expectations, but then acts as the intermediary for the hotel to have realistic expectations about what group offerings are over a certain time period or date. Really good point. Roberta, there's all those sheep to herd. And if you can look at our opening poll, which is 36% say slow or no responses to the RFP. How have CVBs helped you specifically to, if you will, herd hotel responses?
Well, a lot of times it depends on you know, what the CVB or the DMO is willing to do. And but we have found in a lot of cases that they will take it down to 3 or 4 properties for us and then hand it over to us to make the final decision. It's a huge time saver. Again, when we send out our RFP, if we work with the when we work with the CVB, we're looking to send that RFP only to 5 or 6 properties. We're not looking to send it to 60. We don't want to blanket the community. We want to find properties that are going to work with us and for us and work well with us. And the CVB is absolutely essential in being able to do that, especially when we're not familiar with a city. If we are very familiar with a city, or if we have a strong membership there who already have targeted a certain part of the city for a program, the CVB may not play quite as large a role in the upfront part of it, but we still keep them involved no matter what, because we want that relationship to continue through till the end of the program.
So, Scott, Roberta makes an interesting point with her comment about the role or the roles. What if Roberta has, you know, a strong feeling of a hotel alliance? She wants to work with her GSO or wants to go direct to the hotel. Can she also partner with a CVB simultaneously, or is it one or the other?
No, it's sort of like that myth that you can't get a drink in Salt Lake. I'm not sure when that's going to die, but I can tell you, and Roberta can echo that's not the case. I think you know, I'm new. I'm 8 years now in the bureau world, and I've never worked in a world where a bureau was required by any sort of governance structure or anything to send out everything to everybody. And we are first and foremost a group that services our customers. And if a client or a customer says, we want to work with Hilton's or a Hilton, or we like this general manager who has been in other destinations and we hear he's in Salt Lake now, we'd like to work with him, we are first and foremost the client advocate. And I have had the opportunity to speak to and work with and visit a lot of other CVBs and DMOs and talk to their boards. And I really find that ongoing perception is certainly not the reality in the world that I work in. And I hope that that's one of the key things we can do to talk about herding sheep, and that is that herding sheep can be great, but it's also nice to have fewer sheep. And that's one of the things we can really help with.
Well, thanks for dispelling the myth about CVBs will send your lead to all hotels and you can't get a drink in Salt Lake, all in one fell swoop.
I am a ongoing advocate for Salt Lake, so that's
So this is a long-touted reputation plus for CVBs that they are experts at helping planners with the logistics of planning their site inspection. But I know that we have many corporate planners online today that may not be as familiar with how CVBs help really fill in the logistics on a site. Roberta, care to comment there?
Well, I know that we never plan our own site visits, never, ever, whether it's for, mostly our site visits, of course, are around our larger event, our annual meeting, and we always have the CVB working with us, or the DMO, no matter where we are in the world, planning the site visit, largely because the CVB is going to know what has worked well with other programs in the past, what would be of interest in their city, for us to see that we in turn would introduce to our attendees. So we turn that over to them. We may have some wishes where we want to stay, whether it's down in the center of the city or in the periphery or next to the convention center or however, but we work with the CVB on that, definitely. We never go into a city without having the CVB actually plan our itinerary.
And who wouldn't want someone to make all your appointments, confirm them, create a schedule, send it to you ahead of time, right?
Right. It's a time saver, but again, it's going to the expert, and the CVB is the expert on the city, and we try to go in on a site visit like we're one of our attendees, and the CV provides that experience for us.
And I would also add, Terry, that one of the things I think we're finding is that there isn't a one-size-fits-all to site inspections either. There are some people who want to make their own appointments and do certain things, and we're beginning to ask people now, how much free time do you want? Because I think one of the things that we've done that maybe has not been beneficial is we tend to create the sterile environment and manage the site inspections that absolutely nothing goes wrong and we're the perfect city, and that's not reality. And I think we're beginning to ask people, how much do you want? 2 hours of free time? What do you want to do? And so again, really customizing and making sure that the site inspection is extremely relevant for the individual who's coming to spend the time in our destination.
Scott, one of the things I've heard you say several times is that CVBs are becoming and striving to be intuitive and not to be that one-size-fits-all, but to really streamline your processes, to streamline your services and your support to fit exactly what the planner is looking for.
Well, I think that's a trend that, clearly the Destination Next research project that we undertook identified that as one of the key trends for the future, and not just in our industry, but overall. I can customize my Facebook feed. I have my own people I follow on Twitter, and I can really customize my world in ways that are pretty incredible. And from the car I buy to how I shop online and the people that know my preferences, and so this idea of personalization and customization is pervasive in everything we do, and I think that's where it's imperative that as CVBs we recognize that and become more than just a one-size-fits-all, because our destinations aren't like that. Our destinations aren't one-size-fits-all, and I think those tools and that mindset is evident at some level in the CVB world. But as you've heard me say, that's the challenge I'm giving to all my peers and accepting myself and trying to do with our destination is we've got to find those ways to use technology, to use these two-way conversations and make us intuitive and more relevant because of the personalization that we can add.
I think you're a great spokesperson for our industry. We certainly appreciate you leading our board and our, navigating into the future for us as an industry. And, I think that one of the things in a seller's marketplace that everyone would agree on is it's great to have a consultant. It's great to have an advocate, especially one that is paid for by tourism dollars and tax dollars from those vested in the actual destination. So we did promise at the beginning of the webinar that we would offer up some tools. And one of those tools that the Trade Association for Destination Marketing Organizations offers and works in collaboration with our members is empowerMINT. And empowerMINT allows a planner who is beginning to search a destination to go to one web portal, to not have to look at Salt Lake and Denver and San Antonio and Dallas in 4 separate portals, but at one portal, and be able to see what that destination has to offer, to compare apples to apples, to even get relevant destination news, to put in a quick request, send an email, or maybe even if you're ready to offer a full RFP to multiple destinations, you have a one-stop shop. And we mentioned post-event reports, and I was on a meeting this morning where a hotel revenue manager was speaking about risk, and all hotels in the seller's market are assessing their risk. And one of the things that protects a hotel against risk is to see a planner's history. And planners who go to empowerMINT and create a planner profile, register, will be able to maintain their contact information as well as their planner profile. And as you can see down here in the right-hand corner, you will be able to access, if you have worked with a Convention and Visitors Bureau who has reported your post-event history, you can access that history. You can check it for accuracy and even update, reach out directly to the destination. Maybe they missed your pre- and post-room nights. Maybe there were some rooms around the block that weren't accounted for. This is a great place for you to make sure that your histories, the histories that are shared in our industry, are accurate, and that your meeting is being reported in a way that gives you the most competitive advantage in the marketplace. One more thing we'd like to offer you in terms of a resource is our blog. We're quite proud of the content that we keep there, that we want to engage you in continuing discussions about the things that are most important to you. And under some tabs, I'm going to point out some main tabs on our homepage, but under this tab, Planner Perspective, you get weekly or monthly blogs from planners like Roberta who talk about their own experiences and share resources and information. Under education, you will see a wide range of articles, webinars, videos that give you insight into things from attendance promotion all the way through corporate social responsibility projects. There is a biweekly podcast directed also at you, and then up at the top, a way to continue to know what's new in the webinar world, where if you're just trying to chip away monthly at your CMP credit, you can receive nice, concise chunks. And Roberta and I were talking about this when we were logging on today, that isn't it nice to have a half-an-hour session to be able to learn something relative to your job and to manage your time wisely. So in closing, Roberta and Scott, I'd love to just hear your thoughts, if nothing more, about collaboration, how you're moving into the future, Roberta, with all the partners that help you plan meetings, and what you think advice you might offer to those who are listening to you today.
Well, I'm happy to go first. We have always, as I've said before, we've always used the CVB as a strategic partner for both our small and our large programs. But I wanted to give you a good example. We were in Salt Lake a couple years ago, and which is where I got to know Scott. And Scott and his team at Salt Lake are a good example of a partnership that I had that was extremely beneficial, and we have taken it forward working with other CVBs and DMOs around the world to establish the same type of relationship we had with Scott and his team. And one of them is that I found really useful is using the CVB to brainstorm creative attendance builders. For example, when we were in Salt Lake, we wanted to kill our convention bag, and Scott and I came up with the Bring Your Own Bag contest, BYOB, otherwise known as Bring Your Own Beer, which we thought was a little appropriate for Salt Lake to let people know that they could drink. But we had this Bring Your Own Bag contest the previous year, and the Bureau managed it on site for us in the city we were in. We were in Melbourne, Australia, the year before Salt Lake City. And we kept the two ladies from Salt Lake extremely busy because it was an extremely popular attendance builder. And the city of Salt Lake was kind enough to provide some incentives. And we had over 600 people participate in bringing old ISMRM bags to the Salt Lake booth and having their picture taken. And then we had a contest at the end and gave out prizes for the best bags in different categories, like the best bling bag, the best environmentally sound bag, that type of thing. And we even had one guy come up and they took a picture, and he had a bag and he had a piece of paper pinned to it saying, "Roberta, pick me." And it was just a fabulous example of a great partnership that we had with Scott and the team in Salt Lake to promote our meeting in Salt Lake. And since that time, we have done this with the City of Milan, and we did it with the City of Toronto, and we're going to keep this momentum going in the future. And that's just one example of how you can utilize your partnership with your CVB beyond just even the sourcing meeting space, because it actually can work all until the end of. And one last example would be we're all in the world of problem solving. You know, when you take your meeting around the world, there's a lot of risk in with terrorism and different things that can come up, or just environment. Had a volcano go off 2 weeks in Stockholm. The CVB or the DMO in Stockholm became absolutely to us in solve what we were going to do, if we were going to move the meeting out by 2 months, or if we were going to have to reschedule for a future year, or what if we got there and we all got stuck. And the CVB it was an essential partner for us at that time, and I can give you a whole bunch of examples of things that have happened to us where we had to get quite creative, but that creativity would not have come to a successful solution for us if it weren't for these partnerships that we have with the CVB. So I encourage anybody who's still listening is to utilize your CVB from the very beginning and establish your relationship early and take it all the way to the end, because they are going to be your strategic partner throughout the planning of your event.
Wow, Roberta, I always say my personal adage is whenever I attend a meeting, listen to a webinar, if I get one great idea, I think it was worth it. I love that bag thing so much that I just take that and go with it. I think that is absolutely wonderful.
Well, we did the BYOB in Melbourne, and then Scott came up with BYOB squared when we were actually in Salt Lake, and that was Bring Your Own Bag and Bottle.
I love it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was great.
That is great. Well, we'd like to invite all those planners who might be in Washington, D.C. to join us at Destination Showcase coming up here very early. I can't believe how close we are to March 25th. feels like we just started the year, and registration is free. And Roberta, we have so many people still listening that I'm very excited to get to questions, because I know that there are some questions on the board. You will receive your CMP certificate, and a webinar recording link will be delivered to your email inbox within the next 5 business days. So everyone, please check your spam folder so that you know that you get that. But you also have my contact information if you need any additional help. So I would like to thank everyone.